Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, whatever time it is, whatever eon, epoch, or otherwise. From Near Future Industries to your home, we bring you yesterday's technology, bringing you the best of tomorrow today. And I have with me John Tague, actor, hero, writer, director, and everything. How are you doing today, John?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. This is nice.
Yeah, it's we're all communicating from great distances in time and space. Talk about the creative stories that we work on now that we're all kind of in the little bit of isolation bubbles that we have. How are you
Yeah.
holding up where you are?
Uh, you know, it's uh it's rough for everybody, I guess, right now. But to be honest, my life it's really not that much different than normally would be because I'm usually just waiting around for work anyway. So it's not that big of a stretch for me, but this is definitely the longest stretch I've had where I haven't worked. I'm starting to get that itch.
Sure.
Not complaining though. I just want everything to get back to normal, and I want everyone to be healthy and safe in the process. So hopefully things will start to smooth out soon.
I think a
How
lot
are
of
things on
people.
your end? You good?
Oh yeah, we're good here. I'm always
Yeah.
good.
All right.
I'm a huge nerd, so my indoor outdoor life is really not really ever in balance anyway. So, but
I hear you. Yeah.
but speaking of being anxious to work again, we were talking earlier about Rolling Soldier and kind of to tell your story and start
Hmm.
somewhere where it begins with being motivated to take work under your own banner. There's a web show that you have made, wrote, directed, acted
Yep.
in, called Rolling Soldier, available now. You can check it out on the YouTubes and the internets. Um, what inspired you to make this web series, and how did you like what kind of sources and influences in your life drove you to writing the political thriller that you made?
Well, what was going on at the time was I had taken a 5-year break from acting to help raise my daughter, and in that time, things changed so much as far as um, how the industry works. And when I decided to jump back into acting, I needed new material to present, to casting directors and to agents to, work with me. And all the stuff that I had done in the past was really, really dated. Like like Crossing Jordan and the show 20, things like that. And it just it wasn't opening the doors for me. And I figured, well, what I need to do is I need to create something for myself, a vehicle for myself that can show people in the industry what I'm really capable of doing. And the one thing that I've always wanted to kind of take a crack at was like political spy thriller type shows, kind of like in the vein of Homeland or The Americans and that kind of, yeah, and 24 and that kind of vibe,
Sure.
because I feel like I've always kind of naturally gravitated towards that kind of stuff. And I feel like I was really suited to play those
Sure.
characters, but I wasn't
And
being seen for those roles.
image wise, I mean, you definitely do. You've got a very strong jaw, and and you're like you have very serious eyes, if I may say so. And so it's one of those things like when you're
Thanks.
looking for someone to tell a story like that. Definitely, it's something that you fit the label.
Yeah, and it's funny because I wasn't being seen for those roles, so I had to create that role for myself to be seen, and it took it took a year to shoot. We shot 7 episodes. They're all about roughly 10 minutes long. And then after the year of shooting, I had another year of doing post production where I did all the post production myself. I'd never done that kind of work before, and I had no other choice because we ran out of money. So I had to buy the software and had to teach myself how to do everything. And so I ended up not
Everybody's an
only
editor at the
acting
end of
and
the day.
starring. Right. So not only was I, the actor in it and director, but I was also, I was the writer and I did all the post work. I did all the music for it. And yeah, and then I put it out into the world, and it ended up, it was a gamble, and it ended up paying off because I was able to book work because of it. And I was able to be seen for the work that I wanted to do. And now it's I'm still riding on it. I always tell actors that if you're not creating your own content and pushing yourself in the way that you want to be seen, then you're really kind of doing a disservice for yourself. So yeah, the Rolling Soldier web series was definitely the smartest thing I've ever done as an actor. It's really helped my career out,
That's an amazing story.
and I'd love
I've
it if you
always,
guys checked it out.
hey,
I'd
you know
love.
what? I want to invite you here and now on this show. We could do a watch along live
Oh,
sometime.
that'd be great.
And then
Yeah, no, you know
we
what's
could set up a call and we could just and I could ask you questions about what's happening and how the production went and we could set it up and your audience could do a Q&A with it and everything.
that's great that you bring that up, because that's something that I was planning on doing, but I just don't know how to do it. So
Well, well,
if you
let's
guys if you guys
let's make it happen.
if you're
You're the
down,
first.
yeah, if you're down, I'm down for sure. We could have a little convention, Rolling Soldier convention.
That'd be great. Yeah, we could roll through the episodes and talk about them, about your experience as a producer. There's a lot of thoughts there, right? And I'm a big fan of do it yourself media. I'm self taught myself. I've ended up
Hmm.
producing a lot of videos that a lot of people have seen. Even if they didn't know that was me doing it. And
Oh, cool.
I think that one of the things that's neat about that is that especially for people who like yourself, a talent side, I think you're absolutely right. It's that everything else is so much more accessible now, and everybody has a really nice camera, everybody has great audio equipment. Like all of this
Yeah,
stuff is out there, and it's and half the time it's collecting dust in someone's closet. And
sure.
even if you don't have the budget to really push it, and I think the production quality on Rolling Soldier is wild, by the way. It's good. And
Oh, thank you.
but you can really do much more to express yourself if you feel like you're being if you're somehow being stifled by whatever situation you're in. There's opportunities there, and you're living proof of
Right.
that.
Well, I look at it like, and I kind of coined this phrase. I'll pat myself on the back. I'm just kind of an idiot, but I look at it like web series is the new punk rock, in my opinion. It has that kind of feeling and that kind of do it yourself kind of attitude, and that's what makes, I think, web series fun.
Yeah.
And my show, it was literally like us. It was total guerrilla filmmaking. We didn't have permits. The actors that I worked with, they're all pro actors, and they've all been on huge shows, and they work for free, and they just did it because they wanted to do it.
Right.
So it was like a really great able to create something really out of nothing, and it
I
ended up
wager
going
though
all
that
over the world and winning.
I wager that your motivation though and the level of interest and involvement that you already had, like having a script written and having a shooting plan written and and having the resources to do it, like there's a number of things there where you say they're willing to work for free. I have also seen the other spectrum of it where there's a lot of people go like, hey, will you work with me on this thing? And people are like, well, I don't know if I want to work with you on that. But I will tell you the difference right here and now. With John as my witness, it is because you are prepared, right? And you knew what the filmmaking process was, and you go to somebody who loves it. I mean, and nobody got into the business because they, just because it was money or something like that, because that's never a guarantee. They got into it because they loved it, every single one.
Right,
And when you
right.
come with a prepared, like, oh, I could participate in this, and it's the difference between going to somebody's house and they've got their stuff packed and they want you to help move. It's like, sure, I'll move a box for you, right? Or you do help them pack and everything else, right? It's preparation. So
Yeah,
I wager you came prepared. Am I right?
I did. I tried to be as prepared as I could. Of course, there were a lot of things that went wrong as we went, and I had to learn some things along the way. But as far as like the day goes, like shooting days, I had everything kind of dialed down to the minute. We didn't go over budget. We didn't lose any days, but we always got our days, which was the most important thing. The only setback we had was when it came time for post production. We ran out of money for that,
Sure.
and
That tends to be where people
then
kind of
that's when
have stumbling blocks because that's it's the end part, right? So you're kind of in that last sprint, and you never know.
yeah, 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 for sure. But like I said, it was. I tried to be as prepared as I could, for sure.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think that's the
Yeah.
the difference between professional and non-professional. Well, it's still punk rock. I agree with you because like the resources are limited, and you have to kind of make do with what you have. But absolutely,
Yeah.
having a plan is what's going to set you apart between people who would collaborate with you. And
Well,
this
especially, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the people that I was working with, they were pros, and I didn't want to not look as professional as them, and I wanted them to be treated well, and it's and I want to be able to work with them again on things, so I needed to make sure that everybody was taken care of in some way, the best way I could possibly. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it sounds like that worked out, because then that led to future work, which will go right into the big daddy of them
Yeah.
all. Well, the son of them all, I guess, the son of the father, I guess. Lucifer, Morningstar,
Hmm.
the show that unfortunately, well, it's back on the air on streaming, but you were kind of in that last. You were telling me the story of this last episode, but it Rolling Soldier itself led to your connection with Lucifer and getting into the back on some big shows.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, the first show that I booked out of doing the Rolling Soldier, I ended up going booking the show The Blacklist, and I had a really good episode. The director of that episode of The Blacklist saw my web series, and basically just asked me to read for this part, and then I read, and I booked it. And then Lucifer came shortly after that. And the Lucifer story is a really funny story because I'd never seen the show. I didn't really know that much about it, and when I was preparing for the audition, I went back and I started watching some of the episodes, and I was like, "Oh, this show is actually a lot of fun. It's a fun show." So I kind of got I enjoyed the first season, and then I went and I auditioned for the episode that I'm in is in the third season. I think it's the second to last episode of the third season, and it's a kind of a convoluted story because the show was being it was up for renewal, and it was at Fox at the time, and I guess Fox decided that they wanted to bring in the NFL to their network, and so that meant that they had to cut they had to cut some shows, and one of the shows they ended up cutting was Lucifer, and I think the other one was Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
Wow.
and Brooklyn Nine-Nine got picked up right away by I think NBC, and Lucifer kind of was dangling in limbo. And I remember when I found out that the show got canceled, uh, I was super pissed off. And I went on Twitter to was talking about it, and I noticed that there was this hashtag Save Lucifer thing happening. So I kind of clicked on that to see what that was all about, and I saw everyone's comments about how distraught they were and how pissed off they were about the show being canceled, and I kind of chimed in and said, "Hey, my name's John. I just did an episode of Lucifer. It looks like the show's canceled, and you're probably never going to get to see my episode. So
Oh no.
I'm super pissed off, and if you guys need my help, I'll help you out." And I didn't really think much about it, and then I woke up the next day and I had 4,000 new followers on Twitter
Oh
because of it.
wow.
And so
They're like,
it
we're
was
pissed
it was
and we're here with
yeah.
you.
And I was like, well, cool, man. I'll do whatever you guys, whatever you guys need me to do. So I helped them out with like, retweeting hashtags and trying to keep the momentum going so that somebody would pick the show up. And eventually Fox, I think, saw that, there was such outrage online about the show being canceled that they ended up showing my episode. But they showed it after their cliffhanger finale, and it didn't really connect to that cliffhanger, which made people even more outraged because they didn't have closure uh,
Well,
of
also
the
the premise
story
of
that.
the show is that it's a different universe where God had made a different decision towards something. So it's not
Yeah.
even, so it's technically like an Eververse story. Eververse is the DC like alternate universes pieces, like
Yes.
comparative to
Yeah.
Marvel's what if stories.
It's
And
yeah. It's definitely like a what if type of thing,
yeah, so it's
and
definitely, yeah, I
and
can see
so
that.
so that just got them even more outraged, and then they just kept at it and kept at it, and I kept helping them, and eventually Netflix picked it up, which was really great for them, and the fans in return nominated me for best guest star for the E Online TV Scoop Awards. I didn't win, but
That's great of them.
I came in third place behind Neil Gaiman and somebody else. I can't remember, but
And Neil Gaiman's a pretty
uh,
high-end guest star. I mean, you're that's
yeah, I mean, he was the voice of God in the episode,
right.
so
Having him
I
read, yeah.
Yeah. And then I had a nice little chat with Neil on Twitter, which was fun, and beyond because it really opened up a lot of doors for me. And it's their fan base is the best, one of the best fan bases in the world, if not the best. I mean, they are diehard, and they're just really really nice people. They've been great to me, so I'm
That's
very
awesome.
thankful to them.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
think too, like, if you don't know the comic book history of it too, like Neil Gaiman's comic books with DC Vertigo back in the day, he was one of the most influential kind of like adult title comic book writers at the time, and he wrote, the revival of Sandman, and
Sandman. Yeah.
yeah, which is very very popular amongst that kind of the group that follows that, and then Lucifer was a little less. He was more of a part of that pantheon, but he wasn't as big of a draw as Sandman and or Lady, or not Lady Death, but Death, and
Hmm.
Dream of the Undying. But but that whole all of that stuff, and he's obviously a very prolific writer in that genre of
Oh yeah.
fantasy and dark fantasy, and so very compelling stuff there. And when you're looking at the show Lucifer too, like, do you realize that you're also now, because of that episode and because of recent connections, you're also part of the Arrowverse as
Oh,
well?
am I? Oh, good.
Yeah. So there's that. So you
Awesome.
should know that as well.
Yeah,
You're also a
I
great fan.
did see. I did see that they included him in that crossover with the whole multiverse thing,
Yeah.
which
So
I
it
thought
counts. So
was.
so you're in there now. Like,
So I'm in
if he's
there.
there, you're
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Playo's point.
that's cool. That's very cool.
So let's talk about the two of the streaming stuff. Lucifer being picked up by Netflix, and so along with talking about streaming services, that brings us to Hulu and Light as a Feather. Which tell me a little bit more about Light as a Feather.
Yeah, Light as a Feather is a show that I'm on Hulu. I play Ed Brady, who is the father of McKenna Brady, who's played by Liana Liberato, who's a big star right now. The show is based on the young adult novels by Zoe Arson, who's a really really great writer and really sweet person.
Did she
And
participate in the show itself? Did you get to meet them?
I never got to meet her, but but we spoke a lot online, and she ended up signing some books and sending them to my daughter, which
Oh,
was really
that's
cool.
wonderful.
But she wasn't on set when I was shooting. We did 2 seasons of that show. I'm in 4 episodes, and three or three, 3 episodes. I had to think
Hey,
about it.
hey, don't worry.
And
Gwyneth Paltrow couldn't remember she was in Avengers, so or Spider Man. I think she
yeah,
was in.
yeah, I got a Spider-Man story for you if you're interested. But getting back to Light as a Feather,
Sure.
I had a lot of fun shooting that show, and it has a nice little fan base going. It's still available on Hulu, so if you're interested, check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's a great Halloween type of show. Very spooky. It's not like your normal young adult kind of thing. It's yeah, the show and the tone is very. It's a cool feeling. The tone is really cool. That's what I like the most about that show.
Awesome. Hey,
Great group of people too.
well, that we're gonna, and then we're gonna go right into the next one too. Like, talk about Light as a Feather as a spooky show.
Mhm.
I'm seeing a trend here.
Yeah,
How did like horror slash action start becoming the thing that you're being asked for, John?
I don't know. Horror was never really a thing that I thought that I was going to do. I always thought I was going to do, you know, drama or procedural type shows, kind of like the cop shows and stuff like that. But yeah, I never thought of myself in that genre. But I'm actually kind of really enjoying it. I'm finding there's a lot of really talented people involved in that world, and a lot of really cool people, and having a little part in all of that is a lot of fun for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think of all the fandoms, the ones that I've seen the most intense so far is the horror fandom, and they're all sweethearts about it too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's like there's you think it might be these scary people who are into this blood and gore, but I've never met a more gentle group of people in my life. Um, and yeah,
That's true. Yeah, very, very true. Like I was not like the getting back to the Lucifer fan base. I was not expecting them to be as welcoming and um, as yeah, they're just really nice people.
yeah,
I don't have any other word to really describe them.
yeah.
Um,
I think it gets into that realm of
you
like
know, and then
fantasy, right? Because I think that we all look for escapes in stories, and
yeah, yeah,
the different depth to which we explore the escapist parts of our media. When you talk about something
yeah,
that's like Lucifer or anything that Neil Gaiman has written, it's so very much escapist, and it takes you. You almost have to like. There's a certain mentality that will allow themselves to be carried on these very distant journeys. Whereas I think a lot of people also very much enjoy things that are much more relative to their own experiences, right? Where you see like that's where the cop dramas and
yeah,
everything kind of come in. It takes you on a little bit of a
yeah.
trip, but not quite too far, not so far down the road that you don't recognize it anymore.
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
Getting into cops and robbers and dangerous people. Tell me about your appearance in American Horror Story, another long-running
Oh,
horror and action show.
that was a lot of fun. I'm in the American Horror Story 1984. The episode is Lady in White. I play a highway patrolman who pulls over Dylan McDermott and Emma Roberts and Angelica Ross and have an exchange with them, and it didn't go very well for me. and and it was a really fun scene to shoot. That was a great group of people. Really, really super nice, really super professional. I ended up getting hurt shooting that scene, but it wasn't anybody's fault but my own. I accidentally slammed my head on the concrete on the freeway and
Oh
cut my
wow!
head open right before my close-ups,
Oh
which
wow!
was yeah, definitely freaked out
Oh
the
yeah!
crew and the director.
Oh, they're
I
just like,
mean,
oh,
they
hey, where's this guy?
but
This guy's face just got banged up, and I'm trying to shoot these close-ups now. Like, what am I supposed to do? Did did
right.
did they do like first aid and medicine and try to cover it up, or what
Well,
happened?
like the first thing I wanted to do, like as soon as I noticed I was bleeding, I called them over. I'm like, I'm bleeding. Get me a rag, clean it up. Let's put some super glue on it and spackle some, makeup over it, and let's get back to work. And they're like, no, 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 we gotta, you gotta make sure you're okay and all that. And I'm like, I'm fine. It's just, I'm Irish. I'm a bleeder. Um, so, they ended up putting some kind of adhesive over it, and then we're able to cover it with a little bit of makeup, but you could still tell something was there.
Yeah.
And they told me, like, they said basically, look, don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. And I'm sitting there thinking, no way I'm going to get my close-ups. There's no way. And what happened was, I guess they were able to fix it in production, and you can't tell at all. It looks amazing.
They put like a little patch
Um,
over it and tracked the motion. And
yeah, and what was interesting was, I get shot in that episode, and I was expecting them to rig me with squibs, but they didn't. And I kept looking, going, when am I going to get rigged up? And they're like, no, 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 we're going to take care of all that in post. And when I
oh,
went
they did it.
and
Oh, all
watched,
right.
yeah, when I watched the episode, I was blown away. It looked so great. Whoever the guy was that did the post production special effects on that did an amazing job, because
The,
not only like was there blood coming out of me, and a trail of blood as I'm crawling away. It was none of that was there when we were shooting, so I was totally blown away by how great that looked.
the tech on that is kind of crazy too. Like I met one time some guys that worked on 300. With that center did all the blood effects and that. I don't know if you've seen
Oh
300.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
there's all these like big splashy blood, and they're very comic book style, but not trying to
sure.
be realistic like they did in American Horror Story.
I mean,
Um,
it looked real. Like I was like, how did they do that?
but yeah, but the stuff that they do
Amazing.
now, like
Yeah,
they've spent a lot of time kind of refining those arts, and it's crazy because like the squibs are actually
yeah.
fairly dangerous, right? If to people who don't know, a
Oh
squib
yeah.
is a piece of explosive with a blood
I'll
path
tell you.
on it.
I'll tell you a horror story. I when I did the Blacklist, I get shot in that a couple times, and I get shot a lot, I guess, in shows. But they told me, they're like, it's basically like a cop like disc, and then it's got the explosive pack on top of the disc, and then they put it on your body. And when we did the Blacklist, it was kind of like a long one take shot, although they had like 7 or 8 cameras on us, which was really crazy. But after, I got shot and I go down, I'm on the ground, and they're like, when you hit the ground, don't move at all, because you're in the wide shot. And I was like, okay, great. So I go down, and I've got the squibs, and I could smell my flesh burning from the the explosive charge. It was heating up the copper.
Wow.
And I had to sit there and wait for them to say cut. And by the time they said cut, I'm like, get it off me, because it was burning my skin.
Oh,
But it goes, one of those things that you just got to put up with.
yeah. It's the risks of creating art. That's the true meaning of suffering for your craft and for your art.
It's all for the craft. It's all for the art. Absolutely, all the pain. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So that's why it's 2 injuries. So we're seeing some patterns in your career here, John. And one of those is
Yeah. Now that I think about it,
horror action movies and injury on set.
Yeah, I should probably why I keep getting hurt, but
Yeah, we should have this conversation with your agent, I think. But speaking about films and inspirations too, I mean, we getting down that road, and you said that that horror films were necessarily your own inspirations, but everybody getting into film has a kind of key connection with something important to them that kind of drove them to want to be in movies in the first place. And what was that for you? Like, what was the moment where you're like, you know what, that looks like a thing I could do.
well,
I want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved movies and TV growing up. Star Wars was a huge influence on me when I was a kid, and still is. I love Star Wars, and I think that might have had a big part of why I wanted to become an actor, because I wanted to do like a Star Wars film or some kind of sci-fi. But it wasn't until I kind of got to college and started taking acting classes and watching some films that I really wasn't that familiar with, where I started kind of, wanting to do more dramatic types of things. And I guess the films that kind of influenced me the most were films like Apocalypse Now, Terrence Malick films, David Lynch films. I love David Lynch. And
David
I
Lynch
was
tells stories almost like a horror director does, but like just regular dramas that then he has this like certain kind of a pull to it that is, it's very polarizing too among people who watch them. Some people just can't stand David Lynch too, but it's
right. I mean, I love him. I love how he takes the mundane and the ordinary and makes it freakish. I think it's so great that he's his own. I mean, he has his own style. I mean, if you hear the term thrown around all the time, it's very Lynchian.
right.
That's like the best compliment you can give a guy. And
Right.
if you
It's
don't
like
like his
almost like
films, that's
it's an unnerving kind of vibe to it that you
yeah,
can't quite put your finger on, that is just
yeah,
looming in every scene and relentless, right? It's a thing.
yeah. But I mean, some people, I understand what how some people don't like his films. Like they don't understand the narrative of like, say, like Mulholland Drive or Lost Highway or something like that. But then if you go and you watch Elephant Man, or if you watch Straight Story or any of those films, you'll see like really great film that tells a linear. It still has his little touches on it, but those are great films. Like The Elephant Man is one of the greatest films ever made. And
Yeah.
I liked Dune. I thought Dune was great.
Dune's one of my favorite
Um,
movies. I have more than one Blu-ray copy for all the different editions they made, but
yeah,
it's
it's a shame
great
because
film.
he really feels that that's one of the biggest failures of his life. Which I guess as a filmmaker, he's he didn't get final cut on that.
No,
So I think that was the thing that made him, that really destroyed his kind of confidence in himself. And then he was able to do Blue Velvet, which was just,
right. Yeah,
I
and Blue
mean,
Velvet
thank God.
Blue Velvet is a a masterwork. I mean, it's if you go,
Yeah.
any film courses that you say, like one of the movies that you should be watching to learn about the craft of filmmaking is Blue Velvet. And
Yeah.
if Dune, though, you're actually hit it on the head, was that studio influence where, you I think as any creative, there's a lot of back and forth. People talk about the idea that a creative needs control or wants control or has an ego or something about their control. But a creative, like a lot of people, if you don't have any control, if people are driving processes that they don't understand or putting input or throwing input at you that you have to abide by that doesn't necessarily serve the project, it can make you look very bad at the end of the day because there's things going in that are being forced upon it that ultimately don't serve the whole. But your name is still on it forever. That this is the whole that was made, and
Yep.
now you have to take responsibility for somebody who just had an idea during a golf tournament and sent it down the chain, and now you've got to do this thing, and it's so yeah, I feel for him on Dune
I
because it
mean,
was such a
it's
good
kind
movie
of
for
like
us.
that, right? Yeah, no, I totally agree. There's a funny, like, totally off kind of the whole David Lynch world, but if you look at a film like
Uh-huh.
Caddyshack wasn't supposed to have the gopher in it. The gopher was some producer's idea because he wanted to, I guess, sell some toys or something.
Yeah,
And like the filmmakers, the director of that film absolutely hated the gopher, but the
yeah.
gopher was kind of like a thing that people loved about it too, which is kind of a weird thing. But
But
yeah, it's
but
like
they did twist the idea, right?
people.
Because if I remember correctly, they wanted the gopher to be like a friendly character that interacted with everybody, and then eventually they figured out they were like, oh, we're gonna blow this thing up at the end. We're killing this thing. This is like,
Right, right. Yeah, and it's very hard to have creative control over something, and especially when people are financed, or you've got producers breathing down your neck or a network breathing down your neck. They want it a certain way, and it causes a lot of friction. That's what was really nice about being able to create my web series. I didn't have anybody telling me what to do, and I could do it exactly the way I wanted to do it within my means.
what
And
inspired the story of Rolling Soldier? Like, we talk about political
you
science
know,
thriller, but what was the moment that you're like, this is kind of this is the narrative I want to tell?
I was really affected by everything that happened during 9/11. Growing up on the East Coast, I grew up in New Jersey, and I lived in Manhattan for most of the 90s. And I moved out to Los Angeles before 9/11 happened, and that event changed everything so drastically. I still think that we're still feeling waves of that event. I feel like so many different things all of a sudden happened, factions of government and series and all kinds of things that were going on that maybe we didn't know so much about. And then there were things like the stories of like Edward Snowden and WikiLeaks, and you had whistleblower. Oh, I can't remember her name. The
Chelsea Manning.
uh, yeah, Chelsea. And I felt like those stories were really compelling, and what I wanted to do with Ultra was I wanted to tell the story of a guy who was caught up in the middle of it, who is he's a killer, but his conscience is catching up to him. And I thought it'd be interesting to play with that. And then I thought it'd be interesting to play with the fact that he's lost 10 years of his life because of a coma, and what that would be like coming back to your family after 10 years, and also having PTSD on top of it. Those were all things that I wanted to incorporate into the show, and it was kind of ambitious, but I felt like it would be better, it would serve the story better, because we didn't have the budget for a whole bunch of explosions and car chases and things, and I wanted it to be more of a cerebral story, but we do have some action in it as well. Um, and so yeah, like the whole 9/11 and all the events that kind of were taking place and built up, you know were the inspiration for that. Not saying anybody was right or anybody was wrong in any of the
Sure.
way the history has
It's
played out. It was
there's
just
a lot
kind of
of
my
nuance
my
there.
observation.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance
Yeah,
there that might not be make for a light conversation. But no, I
yeah,
yeah
and I didn't want to I wanted people to be able to enjoy it. I didn't want anybody to be alienated by it also. So, I kind of kept it like, it's kind of ambiguous where, there's nobody's really sure who to really root for in that story.
Well,
So
you know,
that's kind of how I went
I'm
about
gonna
it.
hold you to that. We're gonna set up a watch along where folks can
I
do a
want to do it.
QA, and we'll promote that a little early. Make sure that people have about a week to
So
hear about
I'm
it on
down
Twitter and
100%.
stuff, and then we'll do QAs. And hopefully our network problems, so for those of us
Awesome.
who are still with us in the recording, thank you very much for sticking with us, because I know that the audio has been cutting out here and there. And John, thank you for your patience with the network weather as well. But before we kind of wrap up, and look forward to the watch along, I'm curious. You said there was one more thing about a Spider-Man story. Now I'm huge into comic books, and
Oh, yes.
yeah, and all of comic book dumb. So tell me about your Spider-Man story, sir.
Okay, here it goes. Back in the 90s, I would say probably sometime around 99 or 98, like roughly around there. Marvel was jumping in doing web content, and what they had was they came up with this thing called Spider Cam,
Uh-huh.
and they to basically do like a comic strip version of Spider-Man, where you would click on the panel, and a movie would open up, like a QuickTime movie would open up of the scene. And I went in, I got called in to audition for the part of Peter Parker, and I got cast as Peter Parker.
Oh wow!
So
You
yeah,
played Peter Parker.
I was Peter Parker for a very brief period of time. And the funny thing about it was, when I got cast, I didn't know really what it was at first. They wouldn't tell me what the audition was for. I went in and I read for it, but I noticed it was because I was a Spider-Man fan, and I noticed that uh, my name was Peter, and on the sides on the script that I was auditioning with, and the person that was in the scene with me, her name was MJ, and I thought, is this Spider-Man? What is this? And they're like, we can't tell you. And I was like, okay. And then I got a call from my agent saying I booked it, and they wanted to meet me. So I was like, okay, where am I going? They're like, well, you're going down to Marvel's offices in New York. And I was like, holy shit, really? So
That's gotta be like what? I just how? Huh? Yeah.
But what was really interesting about it was, when I went down there, I think the guy who was running Marvel at the time, I think his name was Bill Jemas, I think his name was. And I went there, and I got to see the story, the artists drawing on all the artists at work, and the guys doing all the
Yeah,
lettering and all that. And
I'm trying to think of who would have been drawing Spider-Man at that time, but yeah, yeah.
You
So
probably
you
know
saw the
better than I
mythical
would, but
bullpen in action.
but yeah, but I don't think it was just Spider-Man. I mean, it was like they were doing a bunch of comics, at the time. But what I didn't know at the time was they were having some financial trouble, and 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 apparently Trump Models at the time was involved in the production. So the girl who played MJ was a Trump model,
Nice.
and yeah, but she was great. She's super sweet, and really, very very nice person, very attractive, and good actor. And the they were, I guess they were in bad financial trouble, and
There was a
they were
huge
kind of
crash in
gambling
comic
on.
books at the end of
Right.
the
Yeah, and
turn of the
so
century.
they were going into this new thing with Spider-Man Spider Cam, and they brought the New York Times in, and they did a story on it, and my picture was in the New York Times playing Peter Parker. And then we
Wow.
shot the episode, and
Do you
then
have
I
a copy of
guess
that picture?
I have the New York Times copy. Yeah.
You have to send me a copy of that
Yeah.
picture, and I'll put it on the screen here.
Okay.
You just
Okay,
take a
cool.
photo with your iPhone and send it my way, and I'll show them.
Yeah, you got it. And but what happened was, I guess at the same exact time, they were doing the first X-Men film.
Oh, wow.
And what they decided to do was put all their eggs in the X-Men basket, and they scrubbed Spider-Man Spider Cam, and
Oh
decided
no.
to go hard with the X-Men. So yeah, we did one episode. It's never been seen. I've never seen it.
So somewhere in the can though, there's this spider cam thing. You know what? I've got it written
there's
down.
something.
I'm gonna hunt this down. I'm gonna hunt this down. I want to see it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see
Well,
what
I don't
Marvel
know.
got in the
I don't.
archives.
Yeah, I mean, maybe somebody's got a hold of it somewhere, but I can send you the picture from the New York Times
I would love to see that.
article, and yeah. So that's my whole story. I've gone for a couple of the Marvels, but I've never booked them, which is a shame.
Yeah, I haven't auditioned for them, but I will consider any Avenger, even Stingray or Doctor Voodoo
Mhm.
or like any crappy
Yeah,
DC as well. I'll take Condiment King, whatever Clockman or something. I
sure.
don't care. Yeah, but I
Yeah, sure.
but I think you have a much better shot than I do, and I hope that we're looking forward to seeing lots of great stuff coming from your work,
Well,
John.
from your lips to whoever's ears.
We'll see. Maybe. Yeah. I have my doubts, but maybe Near Future Industries will be the next lead to one of those big things. But definitely,
That'd be fun.
we will follow up. We'll make sure that we get to do that watch along. So I'm looking forward to seeing these as well. And I can't imagine a better way to watch any film than to watch it with its creator and discuss it as we experience it, or after we experience it as well. So look forward to that. And thank you so much
Let's do
for
it.
spending your time with me
Oh,
today.
my pleasure.
Um,
My
and
pleasure.
and to all the fans of his appearance in Lucifer and every other, thanks for enjoying our interview today. I look forward to more with you, John, and we'll see you again very, very soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, everybody, and hit me up on social media. I'd love to chat with you guys.